Coming up on Chasing the Natty, Xavier and I take a look ahead to week 4, where we preview some of the biggest matchups of the weekend and the highest possible scoring games. We'll tell you who to start and who you should avoid in each of those games. All this and more coming up on Chasing the Natty. Well, Xavier, I can't believe it, but we're not a third, already messing up math today. We're a fourth of the way through the regular season already, though, in the 2021 college football season. It is insane to me how fast this really starts to go by, as like once we really get into it. Like it felt like week 1 started basically yesterday. So how you doing today? Oh, by the way, I forget to do this every time I do the opening. My name is Jared Palmgren. I'm the host of the Chasing the Natty podcast. You can follow me at CFF_Jared on Twitter. You can follow Xavier at CFF_Xavier. Please make sure that you follow and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you leave reviews on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And like I said, make sure you follow us on Twitter because that's where you can get the most interaction with us. Now, Xavier, how are you doing?
We're doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good, I'd say. Things are starting to look up for me a little bit. Graduate school kind of calming down just a little bit this week. Hopefully I get my desktop back tomorrow. I went out and got my new SSD card. So hopefully we'll get that installed tomorrow. I can get my desktop back and we will be good to go. So we got a lot of good games this upcoming week. A lot of people will be telling you guys this week it's another slow weekend. I think I saw a tweet earlier today where somebody was like, if you're going to go to the apple orchard to pick apples, this is the weekend. Hogwash. Lots of great games this weekend. Lots of very interesting matchups. And we're going to tell you about each and every single one of them coming up here. So Xavier, you got anything you want to say before we get started here?
I'm ready to get into previewing week 4.
All righty. So we got 2 ranked on ranked matchups. So we're going to start with those here. And we're starting with big games. And then we're going to get into later the higher scoring matchups. So first things first, before we get started here with our previews and predictions, I want to point out that last week, we had 18 total games we predicted last week. Last week, I went 11-7 on them and Xavier went 9-9. Funny thing enough, on week 1, I went 11-7 and Xavier went 9-9. So we just repeated that performance. And so I'm currently sitting at 22-14 on the season. Xavier's sitting 18-18 on the season. So we'll go ahead and get into our first matchup of the night. And this is where game day is going. They are going to number 12, Notre Dame, facing off against number 18, Wisconsin in Chicago, neutral site field. Xavier, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, this is a really interesting game because a lot of people are starting to see that maybe Notre Dame is not as great as what we once thought, during the Ian Book and during the Ian Book era, basically. Jack Cohn. Oh, God, I keep on messing up Jackson Jakes. I just don't know what to call them. Doesn't matter.
I mean, you just called him a food. You just called him Jack Scone.
Jack Scone? Nah, I think that's just your interpretation. I'm pretty sure I said Cone.
All right, y'all. If you heard Xavier say Jack Scone, please at me on Twitter, and I will show it to him, or at Xavier on Twitter. Just say at CFF_Xavier. I heard you say Scone. Please, y'all.
Yeah, sure. But Cone at quarterback. He's not as dynamic or prolific as Ian Book, but at this point, he gets the job done. He's a serviceable game managing quarterback, and you could see the ceiling that Notre Dame has. But does that come to an end versus a not so bad Wisconsin team? With Graham Mertz under the helm and Ches Malusi in the backfield. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to come down to the wire where like that Purdue game started to get a little bit chippy towards the end, and it started looking a little bit close until Notre Dame pulled away. But it's going to be really close to call. I'm really hope that Michael Mayer gets a lot more work than he did this past week against Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
Feel like he's a crucial part of that offense, and then we get to finally see Wisconsin again. I get to see Ches Malusi see if he can carry on that workload, or is Jalen Berger a little bit more healthy to get some more snaps. So a lot of questions for that game.
So currently the spread on this game is Wisconsin -5.5. And like part of me agrees with it wholeheartedly, but part of me also just doesn't want to underestimate Notre Dame in this game. This is the classic Notre Dame game where we underestimate them. We're waiting for somebody to just come in and finish them off. For some reason, they just never go down. Similar to how North Carolina was with them, I believe last year. Similar to how I believe it was Boston College 2 years ago and everything, where everybody's like, all right, Notre Dame's going down this weekend. Boston College is going to come in there. They're just going to expose Notre Dame and give them their first loss. Did not happen. So in terms of matchups on this team, you got on the Notre Dame side, you got a lot of different playmakers that I think they can use on offense. Like you said, Jack Cohn, nothing special. Very perfectly manageable quarterback, but in terms of their weapons that they have, and Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree are quite the dynamic duo in that backfield. I mean, obviously Kyron being the number one back there, but even still, that's quite the duo they got going on there. Receiving work, you already mentioned Michael Mayer, just a huge difference maker in this game, just an entirely different type of tight end than a team like Wisconsin has to face week in and week out. You have Kevin Austin coming in, like breaking out this season. I'm trying to remember, there's another guy that kind of broke out last week. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Avery Davis.
Davis. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I like the weapons that Notre Dame does have to work with, even though I'm not in love with Jack Cohn. And then you go on to the Wisconsin side, Ches Malusi, Jalen Berger. Obviously, that's going to be your entire Wisconsin offense right there. Because as far as I can tell, Wisconsin just hasn't really been able to get a true passing game going. Graham Mertz is what we saw after that first game last year. Like everybody was wondering, including myself, like, oh, when will Graham Mertz get back to what he was in that first game of last year where he almost set the completion record for college football? And he just hasn't been that since. And even with a full offseason, he's just not that. I am legitimately shocked that I've never thought I would say this, but I think Wisconsin fans might be currently missing Jack Cohn as their starting quarterback compared to Graham Mertz. Because Graham Mertz has just not been it. Like there's a lot of hype for him coming into last year. He started off hot and then quickly fizzled out, and he just hasn't been able to get it going ever since. And I guess part of that's also just that Wisconsin doesn't really, again, just doesn't have the receiving talent that even Notre Dame does. Like Notre Dame doesn't have like the best receivers in the world, but I certainly trust them a whole lot more than I do anybody on Wisconsin, except for maybe Jake Ferguson. So honestly, I think I'm almost talking myself here into I'm picking Notre Dame. I'm going to pick Notre Dame in a technical upset this weekend over Wisconsin.
Yeah, an upset in terms of the spread, but I think Notre Dame is still ranked a little bit higher than Wisconsin in terms of the AP poll. So
number 12, number 18.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Notre Dame as well too. I feel like they're just resilient enough, and then if Cohn can get a little bit better week by week. We didn't see much of Kevin Austin last week. I don't know if there was because of injury or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't on the box score. I didn't get to watch much of that game. I just saw a lot of Avery Davis, a little bit of basically almost nothing of Michael Mayer except for one reception for 5 yards, and it was just really Kyron Williams. Mm-hmm. So I feel like they have a little bit more in terms of the weapons that they have over Wisconsin, and I think Penn State gave them a good game plan to use against them. As long as you're really forcing Wisconsin to in these passing to force them to pass, then Wisconsin just falls flat. I mean, Ches Malusi,
you can also just force them to go one for 4 in the red zone.
Yeah. So, and then
Ches Malusi to do.
Yeah, Ches Malusi is a great back, I think, but not as prolific to change a game or be a difference maker. So he'll get a workload of like 20 to 30 carries, but I don't think he's going to break off for a couple of 60 or 70-yard runs. Now, it can be proven wrong, but this hasn't happened yet. So I do like Notre Dame in that game. I'll take Notre Dame.
All righty. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next, the only other top 25 versus top 25 matchup of the weekend. And that is in Arlington, Texas, number 7, Texas A&M versus number 16, Arkansas. That is still among the weirdest phrases I have to say in this year of college football. Ranked Arkansas. So Xavier, give me your thoughts on this game. What are you thinking coming into this?
I just want to give a shout out to the SEC. We're doing a great job of putting out great products and showing that, we're the best conference in the nation. It's just great. Love having that SEC pride, even though, you have your rivalries. And I love what Sam Pittman's doing with Arkansas. I think Arkansas, people are finally respecting Arkansas and giving them their due diligence. I want to shout out Josh Pate. He made he started hyping up Arkansas and hyping up Sam Pittman a little bit more, and also gave the same acclamations and praises to Mel Tucker at Michigan State. And he was like, "Is Michigan State and Arkansas in that same realm of just like they're coming sneakily good?" And I was like, "Ah, man, we're starting to start this little Kirby coaching tree. Just like it's just becoming great. All these great coaches. Maybe in the next 1 or 2 years, Dan Lanning. Hopefully he stays with us, but good coaches can't stay for long."
Mm-hmm.
But back to this game, Arkansas versus Texas A&M. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. Texas A&M, as we all know, Haynes King is out for a considerable amount of time, so we're going with Calzada. Not the greatest quarterback in the world, especially in the college football landscape. I wish Texas A&M had somebody else under the helm at center, but they don't. They have to roll with who they have. They have some great backs behind them. They have they have pieces at receiver that I like, but I wish they just had a better quarterback to get them the ball to. The last week they played, if I'm not mistaken, who did they play, Jared?
New Mexico State.
They played New Mexico State. Not a great team. I think at the beginning of from week 0 or week 1.
Literally the worst team in FBS.
Exactly. Jared berated New Mexico State. I was talking about how bad they were. So Texas A&M had a nice little buffer game of just a cupcake game that they had to get under their get under their belts, and just hey, let's see if we can work out some kinks. And they did. Desmond DeMoss finally showed up after 2 or 3 years of people seeing him praise in high school, and looks great going forward. And then you still have Jalen Watermeyer at tight end, and you have Caleb Chapman and a few other pieces. But I think the main thing for Texas A&M, they're gonna have to rely on that run game of Isaiah Spiller and Devin Achane. But that's going to be a little bit tough. Sam Pittman and those Arkansas Hogs, look, they're just a weird team to face. They're more like a scary team to face now. I'll make the comparison of look, a lot of people at the beginning of the year, people were like, look, you understand what Ole Miss is. You understand that Ole Miss is good, and you probably don't want to play them during your season. I think Arkansas is becoming that in the SEC. Maybe not against a Bama or anything like that, but for some of these lower teams that in the past were oh, Arkansas was just the easy game to go into, or for them to come to us and we could just get the win. It's not
there was always
anymore.
I would say there was always Arkansas.
Yeah, there was always Arkansas.
No matter how bad your season was, you at least weren't Arkansas.
Exactly. Now you can't say that anymore.
Nope.
So they have a lot of good weapons. KJ Jefferson's finally getting into stride. Traylon Burks had finally his breakout day for the season. So it's just a lot of good things clicking for Arkansas. Traylon Smith looks like a great back. They still have Raheem Sanders back there that a lot of people are excited about too.
Rocket.
And it's an SEC. Yeah, Rocket Sanders. And Arkansas's defense is not terrible. It's still, coming along, and Sam Pittman's going to get them right for the future. But that's a team I probably would not want to face, probably not at this moment so early in the season with them on a roll and with having this type of hype coming in. So it's going to be interesting. I'll make my pick after you give your thoughts.
So I think it's almost poetic that the first SEC matchup that Arkansas gets after they've been ranked is against Texas A&M, one of their biggest rivals here in the SEC, coming over from the Southwest Conference with Texas A&M. Well, they came at 2 different times, but you know what I mean? Former rivals and everything. They've kept it going since they've joined the SEC. It's almost poetic that this is their first big game. And I am not going to lie. One thing I'm looking for in this game is the crowd. I am so curious to see which team's fans show up for this game. Is it when you look at that stadium, is it going to be majority A&M fans like it has been in the past? Is it going to be majority Arkansas fans because they're buying into this team right now? Is it going to be a perfect 50-50 split and there's not going to be a real advantage from the crowd? I have no clue. I have no clue what those stands are going to look like. But regardless of who it is, I think whoever wins that ends up having an advantage in this game. Because I think no matter which side comes in and becomes the majority in the crowd, they're going to provide their team an advantage in that neutral stadium. And I think that's something that people really need to be looking out for. You kind of covered most of the in-game stuff and everything. The fact that both teams are going to have to be able to run the ball. But also, again, you're right that both teams are going to have to be able to make passing plays when they have to. And currently, Arkansas is looking like that team that can, when they need to, pass the ball on those downs. However, one thing that you kind of mentioned here is that Arkansas's defense, while much improved from past years, still isn't quite there yet. A&M's defense is legit. That is a team that is going to be holding a lot of people under 20 points this upcoming year. And I would not be shocked if Arkansas struggles to get to 20 points in this game, not because they're bad or they're underperforming. It's just A&M's defense is that good. I don't think anything else really that's kind of pointing out to me. Again, I would have loved to have seen Haynes King in this game, but again, injuries happen and it sucks. I did want to point out that A&M still, like, with all the talk going around this game and everybody being like, yeah, I'm actually going to pick Arkansas to win this game. A&M still favored by 5.5. Like, let's not forget about that, y'all. A&M is still a team that is absolutely a top 10 team for this upcoming year, if not just for their defense and pairing with an offense that, while not the greatest in the world by any stretch of the imagination, still is going to be able to put up some points. And I'm not going to count the Colorado State game. You get Calzada thrown out there in a game where I don't think he was prepared to play for, because I don't think at any point during that game they were telling him, hey, you will be in this game. Probably checked out a little bit. Not that that's the greatest quality for a backup quarterback in the world to have, but even still, I saw them play against New Mexico State last week. I would have liked to have seen more points, but even still, I think that they're going to be fine. I'm actually going to stick with A&M to win this game.
Yeah, I'm going to be with the crowd. Some of the whispers. I'm going with Arkansas. I just don't like Calzada at the helm of, like, look, I know Arkansas is not that great of a defense, but they have playmakers that can, expose on, his weaknesses. And Calzada does not have the greatest of strengths in the world. And I think a quarterback makes or breaks. They're forcing him to pass. I think Arkansas can take the opportunity and turn those into touchdowns. So I'll take Arkansas on the upset.
Fair enough. All right, we'll go through these games, then the rest of these games, at least in terms of the big games that aren't high scoring. We'll go through these, try to go through these a little bit quicker. Next game we have on the slate here is number 9, Clemson at NC State. And the big thing here is I'm going to know now, I'm picking Clemson. But here's the thing that makes me intrigued about this game. When I was looking these games up earlier today, trying to make sure that I got everything I needed, Xavier, I have to ask you a question. When was the last time that Clemson was favored by only 10 points against an unranked ACC opponent?
Oh, man. Probably before Dabo was there.
Probably later than that, but even still, like, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Like, that shocked me when I saw that, because I'm so used to Clemson just having these monster spreads in these ACC, like when they go against unranked ACC teams. And yeah, that's kind of the big thing that pointed out to me here is just how much the perception of Clemson has changed in just a few short weeks, that they are a team that is not expected to blow out these teams anymore. Like, I would have understood if this was like a spread of like 17 or something like that, but no, we're down to 10 points. And NC State's a good team. Don't get me wrong. Like, they're a borderline top 25 team in my opinion, but even still, that was just crazy to me. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not gonna make my pick, but I will say this game screams upset, and I really don't even want to say that about a Clemson team that's ranked 9. It feels weird to say, especially with the opponent being NC State. Like, no disrespect to NC State. Like you said, I do rate them highly. Maybe not a top 25 team, but they're on that cusp. I think they're really close. But I think Clemson has had enough of the growing pains, and I think they figured out, they still have some question marks at receiver. I will say that. I think Justin Ross is a certain guy that they have. Ngata, I think they're going to stick with 2, but they need to find that last little piece. But I think running back is an issue that they've already quickly identified. and they've quickly resolved in terms of like going forward. I think Will Shipley is going to be that guy, and having a consistent back that is going to be back there and can get you in the back, catching out of the backfield and running for about 20 carries a game is a great certainty to have back there. So, and I still believe in DJ. I think DJ is a quality quarterback. I think he's a big guy. I think they've, seen the film over the past 2 to 3 games, and they're just like, all right, maybe we should let him use his legs anymore. Maybe we should let him pass for more than 20 yards down the field. We need these opportunities. I feel like NC State is a great game for that too. But the only thing the reason it's screaming upset for me is that it's at NC State. And NC State, a lot of these ACC teams are seeing Clemson as this like wounded lion, and they're like hyenas, just ready to pounce on them at any time to just catch them off guard.
I mean, Xavier, how did you not go for the low hanging fruit of wounded tiger?
Oh yeah, I don't know why. I started thinking about it, but I was like wounded lion. I was like, I was thinking about the Lion King and the hyenas, and I was like not thinking about the tiger. So I was like, I was in that realm. But it's same analogy, same scenario. A lot of these ACC teams are hungry. They want revenge for all the past like 5 to 6 years of pain and suffering that Clemson has put them through, the embarrassment they've gone through, the things that they've done to their program. So I would expect NC State to treat this as like probably their game of the year, and for them to make a statement on the college football landscape of getting that big upset. But I think Clemson knows that, and I think they're going to be prepared, especially that defense as well too. They're not going to let that many points allowed from the NC State offense, even though you still have some great backs in Zonovan Knight and Ricky Pearson. But I'll still give it to Clemson.
Like you said, I think Clemson knows. Just like every week they go in, they know that they're some team Super Bowl. Like every team is going to give them their best shot. If you swing for the king, you best not miss, and all of that. I do think Clemson is going to probably win this game very comfortably. I understand what you're talking about with upset here, but to me, this isn't sneaking up on Clemson. They know that they got to get their act together very quickly. I think scoring only 14 on Georgia freaking Tech last week was a massive wake-up call for them, that they need to rework some things on that offense, because if you don't trust DJ to throw the ball down the field, that's fine, but you have to come up with another game plan other than these short passes that they're trying to do. You got to trust Will Shipley a little bit more. You got to trust DJ to run a little bit. They saw a lot of success last week. As soon as in the fourth quarter, they started letting DJ run the ball just a little bit on a few design runs. I think they kind of figure some stuff out this week, win very comfortably in this game. I expect them to cover. Yeah, those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and move on from one ACC matchup to another. We got a lot of teams starting to get right in the middle of conference play here. We got Louisville at Florida State. Louisville is a 2.5-point favorite here. This is the 3:30 game on ESPN2. So you want to go first? You want me to go first on this one, Xavier?
We'll go. I'll go quickly because there's not much I really want to say about this. I'm going to pick Louisville in this game. Florida State they're 0-3 for the first time. I think the stat was since like 1976 or 1978.
Mm-hmm.
So they're looking from the bottom of the barrel. They're just they're not looking. They're probably hungry to get a win, but now you're going against a Louisville team where I actually like even though they're like Louisville's 1-1 or 0-2. If I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to think who was their first game.
They played Ole Miss week 1. They
played Ole Miss. So
they're
they
2-1.
They're
2-1.
They're 2-1.
They're 2-1. Week 2 they played some FCS team.
Oh, okay, so they're 2-1. Malik Cunningham looked great against that UCF team. Running the ball as well too, and then Jalen Mitchell looked great as well too, going against a UCF team that's defensively challenged. So I like Louisville going into it. I don't really like much out of Florida State right now. I guess Jashawn Corbin is a bright spot, but Louisville has a sneakily good defense for the ACC. They have good playmakers, like a linebacker. They have a guy named Avery that I'm looking out for in the draft upcoming this year. I think he's a really solid piece that they have. That I keep on seeing his name every single week, making big plays, a leader on that defense. So I think from a talents perspective, I'm just going to have to roll with Louisville on this one.
So you're talking about Clemson being in wounded animal mode. I think Florida State is in full wounded animal mode. This is a team desperate, and I mean desperate for a win. They have lost some games this year that they flat out should not have. They played Notre Dame close. Everybody's so happy for them. And then they followed that up with just completely blowing a game to Jacksonville State. And then last week, it was like they hardly tried against Wake Forest. They have to look at themselves in the mirror and say, we are 0-3 and we're Florida State. Like I said, that hasn't happened since like the 70s. That is an absolutely ridiculous. So like, Xavier, you know me. I was one of the hardest people in the world on Willie Taggart and the lows that he brought Florida State to. Currently, Mike Norvell cannot get this team going right now. Like this is an embarrassment. This is again, I don't like to talk in terms of must wins and everything, but if this Florida State program, not team, program wants to get anywhere close to out of the depths within the next couple of years, they have to win against a very hot Louisville team this upcoming weekend. They have to make Louisville make mistakes, do what Ole Miss did to them, because Ole Miss doesn't have the greatest defense in the world. Like they're looking decent so far, but they're not the greatest in the world. But you know what they did? They forced Louisville to make mistakes on offense that first week. UCF could not do that last week. Florida State has a few pieces on that defense. A lot of transfers come in. Jermaine Johnson, outside linebacker, can make quite a few plays to just disrupt that Louisville offense. And then you trust Jordan Travis, Mackenzie Milton, Deshaun Corbin, somebody. Just make sure you get a win this weekend. I am thinking they do it. I think Florida State wins this weekend. Louisville is only a 2.5-point favorite here for a reason. Louisville can make mistakes. It's very turnover prone. Or it's not that they're turnover prone. It's like once they start committing turnovers, it gets ugly very quickly for them. So I think Florida State can absolutely pull off this win this weekend. I'm going to pick them to upset. 2.5-point spread is not exactly the biggest upset in the world, but I'm picking Florida State to upset Louisville.
Yeah, I will say this. Looking at their schedule for the rest of the year, if they don't beat Louisville, there's only about 2 games that I could possibly see in them, winning for their season. That's one against UMass and possibly another one against maybe a Syracuse team. And I really would still take I would probably still take Syracuse in that game as well, too. They can't win against Louisville this week.
Like I said, this can get ugly for Florida State very quickly if they do not win this game this weekend. So I think they have to win this game. Louisville can afford a loss here as a program. Florida State cannot. And I think that's the reason why Florida State pulls out the win this weekend. Keeps the program alive for at least another couple of weeks.
Man, you're talking about from a 2-win season to possibly a 3-win season. I still think their program, I don't think they deserve the kind of hype that they're getting from.
If they can beat Louisville, I think that there's several other ACC teams on their schedule that they can probably beat. And let's not forget, Miami always seems to struggle with Florida State for some reason.
That's true. I will give you that.
All righty. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next game, and that is another SEC matchup. This is Tennessee at number 11, Florida. So Xavier asked me, Jared, why'd you put this on the schedule? This is not going to be an interesting game. And I'm like, you know what? I think it will be. Florida is in classic letdown spot here. You coming off a very close loss to Alabama. And if you have surfed the Florida message boards this week, they are automatically assuming they're getting a rematch with Bama in the SEC championship. Like their minds are already in December for some reason. They think because they lost by 2 points to Alabama that all of a sudden that's a guaranteed walk to the SEC championship. If the Florida team is like that and Dan Mullen's letting them be like that, you got a very explosive Josh Heupel offense coming in here with a now hopefully settled quarterback with Hendon Hooker coming into the swamp. And I think that there's definitely a possibility of Tennessee pushing Florida in this game if Florida lets them. That's the biggest if here. If Florida's mindset starts going forward like they did last year when they went to LSU and LSU was able to pull off the upset against them, there's no reason why a team like Tennessee can't hit a couple of dimes down the line and force Florida into a very uncomfortable situation to where they could lose this game. That's my thought process on this game. I'm still picking Florida to win this game. Don't get me wrong, But I do think this game's going to be closer than I believe the 20-point spread that it is. So what do you think, Xavier?
I disagree with the spread. I think the spread should be a little bit lower, but not by that much. I think Florida is going to handle this very easily. I really hate saying this. I don't like picking Florida for things, but Tennessee is not that inspiring for me. Like, I love Josh Heupel's offense in UCF, and I think it worked at the for the AAC level. But this is the SEC. You're going against a great Florida defense with a lot of five-star D linemen, a lot of guys coming at your quarterback really fast. And maybe, I don't know, if Pittsburgh gave you some problems, it's going to be a whole lot worse going against a Florida defense like that. Brandon Cox is a superstar future draft pick in the making, a guy that will be playing on Sundays probably this upcoming year and next year. And you're going to have that type of havoc coming down your throat. It's going to be a lot of pressure for a lot of young guys too. Like, both of your running backs are brand new and fresh onto the SEC and college football collegiate level. Your wide receivers are very young too. You don't really have much returning except for a few pieces on that O-line and I guess some guys on your defense, and your defense is not even all that stout. So I will say I'm not very high on Florida's offense, but I think Malik Davis and some of their running backs gave me a little bit of inspiration to say, hey, you can run on some bad teams. If you can run on Bama, you could probably run on Tennessee, and Emory Jones can too.
I mean,
and it looks like he can hit in the middle.
Again, this is something I went back and watched the Alabama game and everything. Like, a lot of people were talking about, like, oh my God, Florida's able to run on Bama. They weren't running on Bama by running up the middle. They were running the option the entire time, which was not something I don't think Bama was expecting Florida of all teams to do.
I don't know. With Emory Jones at the helm, it was kind of like everybody had that thought of like, you're going to have to decide, is it going to be Emory or is it going to be the back? I thought, going in, they would prepare for that, but obviously they just didn't look like it.
Nope. But regardless, again, the automatic, there are just a few games this year. I can already tell that Heupel has changed at least one aspect of the Tennessee program, in that they are not going to be a team that just lays down and dies anymore. Like, if they fall behind, they accept their fate and continue. They're going to be a team that is going to be throwing punches until the clock reaches triple zeros in the fourth quarter. And again, if Florida gets let's be honest, if they get like how Bama got last week, if they get up big early on and they kind of get a little lackadaisical throughout the rest of it, I could easily see Tennessee kind of coming in and make this game uncomfortable. Again, I'm picking Florida and you're picking Florida as well, I imagine. But even still, like, I think this might be a closer game at the end of the day than people are expecting.
Yeah, I'm still predicting a blowout, but we'll see. You'll probably watch that game a little bit more closely than me. I feel like I have some other games that are going to be worth my time, but if I get some updates, then yeah, I'll tune in.
Absolutely. Speaking of games that you're probably going to be more tuned into, you specifically told me that you're excited about this game, so I'm going to let you kind of speak on this one. That is West Virginia at number 4, Oklahoma. This is the 7:30 primetime game on ABC. So, Xavier, what got you so excited about this game?
Yeah, West Virginia is doing a lot better than I expected. I knew Letty Brown was good, but I didn't expect him to not to say carry the entire offense, but he makes he is the identity of that team and helps the offense, move down the field. And I think he's that prolific of a back. And I think Oklahoma defensively is not looking as stout as they once were in their bowl game against Florida last year. A lot of people had a lot of hype going in that, Oklahoma's different. We won't have this Big 12 stigma of having a bad defense anymore. Like, we have pieces on this defense that can really get some stops. And yeah, I'm just not seeing it so far. And then if I go to the offensive side of the ball, we talked about this in our recap of last week. They kind of fall flat after a couple of drives. Like, you get one or two drives in, get down 40 yards down the field, and you're kind of close to field goal range, but not just there yet. And then you just fall flat on your face. So I think West Virginia is going to have to really going to be probably a big test for them to see if hey, if you fall behind because you can't put up points, especially meaningful points too, then West Virginia can go up on you. I think they did a really good job against a great Virginia Tech team and a lot of other teams that they played so far this season. But I've been very impressed with West Virginia. Now, I don't know. I would still like to hear your thoughts behind this before I make my pick. But I might take the upset in that one. I might.
Oklahoma's a 16.5-point favorite here in this game. They're
Yeah.
playing at home. They're going to want to put on a show in front of the crowd, especially after a very lackadaisical performance last week against a Nebraska team that, by all accounts, they should have blown the absolute doors off of. They got to get some things right this week in the offense. I don't think Riley's going to be letting up in this offense or in this game. They're going to go after that weakened secondary for West Virginia, who lost a lot of talent to the transfer portal. They lost their defensive backs coach, who's now at Georgia. They're going to go after those DBs, and I think that they're going to be putting up plenty of points in this game. Now, I'm sure they'll give up plenty of yards on the ground to Letty Brown. I'm sure that Dougie is going to get plenty of yards with Sam James and Winston Wright and Bryce Ford Wheaton. I'm sure West Virginia is going to score plenty in this game, but I don't think Oklahoma lets up in this game. I'm taking them in this game. I don't know if they'll cover or not, but I expect them to win pretty comfortably here.
Yeah, I really want to believe that. And I really I know Lincoln Riley probably has a plan of we didn't have the greatest game against Nebraska, but Spencer Rattler, I don't get that feeling anymore of oh yeah, he's the next Oklahoma great QB of that spectacular guy that's going to make all the right throws.
Can I be honest? I've never really felt that with him.
I kind of got eased on into him where it was just all right, he's a 5-star kid. He has this some highlights that he did in high school that were pretty kind of cool. And I was well, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he is in a Lincoln Riley offense and you have a great QB whisperer. So maybe he'll get better. But now, not seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I really
do it.
Nah, we're not gonna do it. We're not gonna do it. We're still gonna go with Oklahoma. I think it'll be a very close game. Probably less than what the spread is, but yeah.
Well, I would hope so. If you're calling a close game and you're meaning over 17 points, I don't think that's a very close game.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, we'll go ahead and move on to the next game here, and that is going to be This to me is just one of those kind of just interesting out of conference games that I didn't know these two were playing until this weekend, and I saw this and I was like, hey, this is actually kind of a very interesting two different styles going on here, and that is University of Alabama Birmingham, UAB, going on the road and facing Tulane. So this is an 8:00 game on ESPN Plus. So if you don't have ESPN Plus, my apologies to everybody out there. I think you're going to miss a very good game here. So Xavier, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Tulane has played very well this year. I mean, it was a tough first loss against Oklahoma because it was a very close game. And it left a lot of promise going forward. A lot of people like Michael Pratt going into the season. Then last week, they didn't have the greatest showing against Ole Miss, but Ole Miss has a very high-powered offense that's going to be hard to keep up with. And it's hard to gauge their defense so far, but they're showing their SEC superiority to where, yeah, we just have more, 5 or 4-star guys, better talent than you. So obviously we're going to show that in our defensive side of the ball. So it's going to be very interesting. I mean, I believe in Michael Pratt to do it against UAB, but UAB for a lot
similar competition, UAB does a good job of stopping a lot of these teams and what they do best. Like against North Texas last week, they completely, I will say this, they shut down the wide receivers a lot, but it was only because Jair Shorter wasn't playing and Tommy Bush, and you only had Roderick Burns, the only wide receiver out there of note. So it was kind of tough for the QB to actually get him the ball. He only had about 2 receptions. And then Torrey was hurt, playing hurt, so he is coming back off of an injury next week. So that was also stopped. And they did a good job versus Georgia as well, too, for the rush defense as well. So UAB is a tricky team to face if they're not playing, up to competition. But it will be very interesting to see. Watts is an interesting receiver that I'm looking at as well for Tulane, Deuce Watts. But
Tyreek James, one of my boys this year. I like Tyreek a lot.
Yeah,
I believe he's actually leading Tulane receptions this year,
probably,
if I remember correctly. Let me double check that. He is. He has 11 receptions, most on the team. He also has the most yards.
Yeah, he does.
Y'all, I'm not kidding. Go pick up Tyreek James as a tight end. even so, my thoughts on this game I have no freaking clue to expect from this game. This is definitely, I think, going to be one of these. I think this is definitely going to be one of these data point games that we look back on later in the season when we're trying to compare conferences to each other. Because you have UAB, who is expected by a lot of people to once again be in the running for the CUSA conference title, versus Tulane, who a lot of people are realizing now could be a contender for the Sun Belt. You got Louisiana and Coastal Carolina, obviously, as the favorites there, but I believe Tulane. No, I'm dumb. Tulane's not in the Sun Belt. They feel like a Sun Belt team. No, they're in the AAC.
Yeah, they are.
And so I honestly in the AAC, Tulane's probably like a middle of the pack team. So if a middle of the pack AAC team takes down the conference championship or a possible conference champion for CUSA and does it convincingly, that tells you how far along the AAC conference has come along by separating itself from the group of 5 conferences. So yeah, I really have no clue what to predict in this game. Who are you predicting here, Xavier?
I'll go UAB.
Okay.
I'll trust their defense.
I'm gonna go Tulane, and I'm gonna trust the better quarterback in this game.
That is true. I did consider that as well, and I was like, man, it's gonna be tough.
So from one interesting out of conference game to another, we got a Power 5 versus a Group of 5 game here that I find extremely interesting because again, it's going to provide you just another data point for how good some of these Group of 5 teams are. Indiana traveling to Western Kentucky. This is a game that I know Xavier pointed out to me almost immediately. He was saying, hey, this might be a game that Bailey's out trips up on. And I said, hell no. He's still going to put up points in this game. Against Power 5 competition, Houston Baptist last year was still putting up over 400 or 500 yards of offense through the air against Power 5 competition. Indiana is not a top Power 5 team this year. So you don't have to say like, oh, this is a better team than they faced. They faced Texas Tech last year. They put up plenty of points against them. They put up there's another Power 5 team they put up points against last year. The offense at Western Kentucky is designed to put up points. They're going to put up points against almost every team in the country, except for probably the most elite of teams like a Georgia, like a Texas A&M, like a Alabama, like a Clemson. Like those are probably the only defenses that are at least going to be able to straight up stop this offense. So I'm looking forward to this game. Indiana's favored by 9 points. I am quite possibly leaning towards picking the upset here because Indiana, coming off that Cincinnati game, they played their hearts out last week. They gave it their all, still came up with the loss at the end of the day. They're now 1-2. A lot of their goals for this season are almost out the window in terms of they're probably not going to win the Big Ten East this year, whatever chance they might have had there, because even with Ohio State looking down here, Michigan looks good. Michigan State looks good. Penn State looks good. You got all these teams on the up and up over there. Meanwhile, Indiana's struggling. I just can see an absolute letdown game here for Indiana. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and pick that. I'm going to take the upset here. Western Kentucky fires the ball through the air, puts up too many points for Indiana to handle.
Yeah.
Especially if Penix keeps throwing interceptions like he has been.
Yeah, okay. I don't rate the Western Kentucky defense that highly enough for where maybe Penix will have to really take some risky throws. I think he's a little bit smarter than that. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just going to have to still go with Indiana. Still going to have to go Power 5 team. It's nice to hear that what Houston Baptist did against this and where they brought a lot of pieces over from Houston Baptist to Western Kentucky. But I mean, Western Kentucky, I will say they put up a good game against Army. They did.
35 points.
They put up 35 points. And Army is no slouch. But I think I just like the offensive weapons, probably in terms of if I had to pick up matchups and say, hey, I like the Indiana offense over the Western Kentucky defense instead of the Western Kentucky offense over the Indiana defense, I'm still going to take Indiana's offense over their Western Kentucky's defense. And I think Stephen Carr and Ty Freifogel, and another receiver I was looking at as well too had a great
DJ Matthews, I believe.
Yeah,
his
DJ
name is.
Matthews is doing really well with Penix as well too. So I'm still gonna take Indiana. I don't know. It could be a shootout, but I'm just gonna say no, strictly because of Power 5 bias.
No, I think Western Kentucky pulls off the upset here. Indiana.
I don't think Indiana's that bad as it feels like Western Kentucky versus
No. Hear me. Don't hear what I'm not saying. If Indiana plays 100%, they win this game and they win it comfortably. I don't think they're playing 100% on Saturday. I think this is a team that is very quickly realizing that almost all their goals are out the window, and there are going to be games that they're going to circle from here on out that they're going to give their all in for. Some of these games I don't think they're up for, and I think this weekend is going to be one of those games they can absolutely get upset in. So I'm picking Western Kentucky for the upset here.
All right then.
So last one here, we got Pac-12 on Pac-12 prime. The Oregon State Beavers going over to USC. Xavier, this is the 10:30 Fox Sports 1 game. You specifically asked me to make sure that this game was on the docket for us to discuss. So I'm going to let you start off on this one.
Yeah, we finally get to see Jackson Dart at QB1 officially. You don't get to see Slovis only threw for 2 passes before he got hurt. So you still got to see a lot of Dart, but now we're gonna have a full week of him in practice running with the ones. Going into not so great Oregon State team. They have a few good players that I like. That BJ Baylor is a guy that I'll be looking for in this game to see if he can run against that USC defense, see if he can have a big game. But I just want to see if Dart is going to be the future of USC. Will he be able to, pull Slovis on Slovis and essentially take that job away from him for the rest of the year? So it's going to be a good litmus test to see how Dart looks going forward. Because, it's not to say it's much of a rush, but, he was a Gatorade Player of the Year at high school and threw for a lot of touchdowns and also ran for a lot of touchdowns. So I like the dual threat ability that he has. And I want to know if hey, is this a guy that we're about to get a lot of good film on? And, maybe for next year, he'll be a top 5 or 10 quarterback going for fantasy in CFF. So really excited.
Yeah, like you said, if he shows that dual threat ability, he will be regardless of whether Slovis comes back and somehow takes that job back, which I don't think he is going to be able to. If
Dart does well, then no.
If Dart does well, it's going to be hard for Slovis to get that job back. But you're right. If he shows that dual threat ability, he's probably a top 10 fantasy quarterback next year pretty easily. Yeah. And I'm with you. I'm excited to see what Dart can do. I was not a fan of USC as a program with Clay Helton as their head coach. Keaton Slovis just never really impressed me at USC. Everybody talks about it all the time, he beat out JT Daniels. No, JT Daniels beat him out. He got the start. It's just that JT went down, and then Clay Helton, being the terrible coach that he is, said, yeah, but what if we just stuck with Keaton? And JT's now at Georgia, and he's doing very well for himself, I might add. So I am excited to see this team now with a different head coach. I'm very excited to see who they hired. I do hope they take their time with it. Do not rush at USC. Take your time, find the right pick. As we were kind of alluding to earlier with the whole Josh Pate rant and everything like that. Find the right culture fit. Don't just go and hire the next hot name off the coaching carousel. Find a guy that is going to be yours. Sir.
Somebody, Reggie Bush recommended that, and I was like, please don't do that.
Dude, I was about to say Reggie Bush. I was just screw it, just throw in Reggie Bush. God, there was a name I heard not too long ago that people were saying that was a legitimate, hey, I like Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy to USC, I think would be great. Anyway, we're getting off topic here. Regardless, I'm picking USC. This discussion wasn't really much about who's going to win this game. I think it was more of just we want to talk about Jackson Dart because we both like Jackson Dart.
More. Hey, I do want to see BJ Baylor to see if he does well and gets a bigger workload too. So
that is true. Alrighty, so those are just our big games of the week. Obviously, there are other big games, but we're about to talk about those here because these are our high-scoring games of the week. These are the games that have over-unders. You can find over-unders of these games over 65. Some of these games in some sports book, you'll find a little under 65, but I basically went for the highest over-under I could find for some of these games, just so you guys can know what team or what games are expected to put up tons of points, so that if you're sitting there struggling, trying to figure out who to sit, who to start, you look to these games and say, hey, these are the games that are expected to get lots of touchdowns. I want a guide from this game. So first game we're going to start with here is another ACC matchup. Lots of ACC on ACC matchups here. We got Wake Forest on the road at Virginia. So I think I'll start on the Virginia side, and Xavier, if you want to touch on the Wake Forest guys, we can go there. Virginia, weird offense, but it's effective. They got pieces on this offense that they got a lot of people on this offense that just don't work in traditional roles like an X receiver, Y receiver. They're not just straight up running backs. You got a lot of hybrid guys in this offense. They are a special case every single week for the team facing them to try to prepare for. And these names start with obviously quarterback. Oh my God, Brennan Armstrong. I don't know why I blanked on that. It starts with quarterback Brennan Armstrong. I called him this year's least sexy quarterback pick when it came to drafts, but it's a guy you had to draft. Like, he's not going to be a guy that's going to be on the front of magazines. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be wowing you every single week. But at the end of the week, when you look at your fantasy team, he somehow got 35 points. And you're sitting there just sexy like, you know what? What was that?
Say he's sexy now.
Oh, he's sexy now. He is very, very sexy now. But in addition to them, he's got plenty of weapons. Dontavian Wicks, these last 2 weeks, has become a key piece of this offense. And I think he's absolutely worth a pickup if you haven't done so for your waiver wires already. Jelani Woods has been a tight end that I have been pushing for people to pick up. In addition to that, you got some other pieces on this team like Keontae Thompson, Billy Kemp IV is another piece of this offense I think people need to take advantage of. Rashawn Henry is a wide receiver that is finally starting to make sure that he gets involved in this offense. So I think Virginia's got a lot of points or a lot of pieces for this weekend, and we'll be putting up a lot of points on Wake Forest. They put up 39 on UNC last year in an absolute burner of a game where both teams were just going absolutely nuts. So Xavier, on Wake Forest, who are you looking for?
Yeah, I know last week I said maybe not so much Sam Hartman, but now I'm a little bit on the Sam Hartman train. I did like him going into the season, and now over the time I was like, he's going up and down for me. But they have a lot of pieces on that offense that I'm just surprised about, where we all thought it was going to be Ja'Kerry Roberson as like that number one receiver. And last week he really wasn't. He only had 2 receptions. You had A.T. Perry, 7 receptions, 155 yards, and a touchdown. Another guy, Taylor Morin, had 7 receptions as well. The running back, Christian Beal-Smith, had 95 yards and 19 carries. But you also had some other guys where they were splitting. A lot of the running backs were splitting. They had 3 running backs with 10-plus carries this past weekend. But I think Christian Beal-Smith is still that lead back for Wake Forest and still going to be a great back for them going forward. And Sam Hartman, rushed for 37 yards last week as well, too. So I like that in him, too. And he has a lot of weapons, like I said earlier. So it's just, with Wake Forest, they can put up points. I believe that this is a game where the over-under, pans out in the way that, it's over 65 points, because I think these 2 offenses are that great and their defenses are not that great. So I like these games going forward. If I had to pick a winner, are we picking winners for games?
Yeah, we pick winners for these guys. I'm going Virginia.
They're going to Virginia. Ooh.
I just liked how they played last week and how they've been playing. And I think it's the team that just can put up points on whoever they want to. That's because there's just a special case. They're a hard offense to defend against because they're such a special type of offense to defend against. So I think I'm going to go Virginia here.
I'll take Wake Forest. I think their offense is a little bit underrated. Virginia's played some bigger teams so far. Okay. I guess Wake Forest's only game of note so far was Florida State, but 35-14 blowout. I like it. I like it a lot.
Sounds good. All right. Next one we got here, another one of these interesting out-of-conference, underrated out-of-conference matchups. Excuse me, not under-conference matchups. We got San Jose State facing off at Western Michigan. Two teams that have been kind of up and down in their performances on offense. But man, when these teams get going, they can really, really put up some points. So Xavier, who would you like to point out the players on, San Jose or Western Michigan?
I'll take Western Michigan. Yeah, Caleb Ellaby in that Pitt game looked phenomenal. He finally looked like he got back into form of like what we all thought Caleb Ellaby could be, that great quarterback. And he's getting a lot of his pieces back that we didn't think, Sky Moore, a lot of people were concerned about. But he also, we found some other guys as well too. We found, Sean Tyler, the running back for Western Michigan, emerged as a good guy in fantasy. He had 14 carries. Ladarius Jefferson, obviously the lead back for Western Michigan so far this season, had 2 touchdowns. I will say I am concerned because I thought Caleb Ellaby was more of a dual threat guy, and he hasn't. A lot of these dual threat guys that we had going into the season haven't been rushing that much. Brandon Armstrong loved his legs last season. This season, not so much. It's all about his arm, and it's kind of what Caleb Ellaby's been relying on this season too. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if a lot of teams are scheming to stop these quarterbacks from, being so mobile, or maybe they're just trying to, I guess, work on new things. So it's an interesting thing to look at. Corey Crooms is another guy that you should probably look at. He had 8 receptions for 161 yards. He had a big 54-yard reception. It was great. But yeah, I love this Western Michigan offense. And
Aflac policyholders
have
been
what
paid
is that?
$37 billion direct.
Sorry about that.
Xavier's looking up insurance.
Oh yeah, Saban just sells me insurance at all times. He's just Saban.
Nick Saban's actually in Xavier's house right now, like with the
Aflac insurance. Sorry, this is a Jake for State Farm commercial. Household. Sorry, Saban, you won't convince me otherwise. But yeah, I do like Western Michigan's offense. I think Caleb Ellaby will look better going forward, and yeah.
All right, so I'll talk about some of the guys.
Well too.
Oh, you think they're going to win the game?
Yeah.
All right, I'll put that down. I'll talk about the San Jose State side of things. I'm going to keep singing like this because that's the only way I can speak clearly today for some reason. Anyway, I don't know what just happened there. Y'all forgive me. Anyway, San Jose State starts with the quarterback, Nick Starkel. Like we said in the past before we talked about this team, Starkel has basically been a countryman going across all across the country, looking for different places, finally has settled on the West Coast at San Jose State. He's really found a home for himself there. The team loves him. The fans love him there. He seems like the kind of quarterback that they truly embrace and are willing to try to win games with. In addition to that, he's got plenty of receiving options there. Starts with his tight end, Derek Deese, done well for himself through several games this year. Isaiah Hamilton, you got Charles Ross, 2 receivers that he's been relying on pretty well. And then I want to hype up Tyler Nevins here, but I have been hearing some rumors that not all is well with Tyler Nevins and this program right now. So I'm not going to recommend him to be a starter this weekend until some of that stuff gets cleared up. If you have Tyler Nevins and want to start him this week, please try to keep up with that situation as much as you can. I know that information around college football, especially the group of 5 schools, is not always great to try to find. However, again, that's definitely a name you need to keep an eye on if you're willing to try to start him this week. Now, in terms of who I think will win this game, I think it's an absolute coin flip this game. I think both of these teams have shown that they can have on days, they can have off days, and I have no clue who's going to have an on day when it comes to this weekend. But to me, if both teams have on days, I think I give Western Michigan the slight edge. So I'm going to take Western Michigan to win.
Okay. Are you going to go back in order with our games now, or did you just want to go to San Jose and Western Michigan just for fun?
Oh my God. So on the show sheets, the order of games is different than what I have written down in front of me. So my apologies, Xavier. I totally messed you up with that. We're going to go back in time and we're going to go to the noon game on Fox Sports 1. This is a rivalry game that we lost last year. I'm excited to get it back. I know TCU fans and SMU fans are glad to have this back. It's battle for the iron skillet. SMU at TCU. So, Xavier, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'll speak on the TCU side because I'm really excited to see. There's one name I know a lot of people in the C2C community and a lot of people, even CFF, were looking at this year. And it's not Max Duggan, it's Zach Evans, running back from Houston, Texas. 5-star running back. It was on a lot of sites, he was one of those top 3 running backs in this last recruiting cycle. And there was rumors that he would be at Georgia, then things fell out. Then there was at some other schools like Florida. It was just a lot of turmoil around his name. And he ultimately ended up at TCU. And his first year, he did all right. He showed promise for that TCU program. And we were like, man, going forward, I'm really going to like Zach Evans if he gets more of a workload. And then he didn't play much his first game because of a coaching violation or a team violation. But his second game, he lived up to a lot of the hype and a lot of the expectations we were looking at up. He was going against Duquesne, but he had like 22 carries for over 150 yards, I believe, and a touchdown or 2. And I was like, man, if he can get that consistent workload for TCU, man, that's going to open up a lot of things for that TCU offense, and it's just going to be great. So I'm really excited for TCU because Max Duggan is no slouch at quarterback. I think his dual threat ability is great. He's also a great rusher as well, too, to where, I could kind of compare TCU to like the Baltimore offense where your quarterback and running backs are going to kind of have a similar amount of carries. Probably in this case, TCU's running back, Zach Evans, will have a little bit more. But also, you have great receivers as well, too. You have Quentin Johnson, a name that's kind of getting overlooked this season. I mean, so far this season, I know a lot of people in preseason rankings had him rated a little bit higher than what he's doing now. But I think, it's got to be week 4. So, and they had a bye week. So technically this will be their 3rd game. So I like them going forward. Now, in terms of winning this game, that's a little bit tough, but I'll take TCU. I'll take TCU in this game.
I'm going to speak on the SMU side of things. And I'm also going to take them to win this game. Yeah. My TCU friend, if he ever hears me say this, is going to kill me. But that SMU offense is looking good. That SMU passing game is looking ridiculous. Tanner Mordecai is looking like a better quarterback than Shane Buechele was ever able to provide for this SMU offense. And he's got a plethora of receiving options that are going to be dynamite for them this season. Reggie Roberson definitely has faded to the pack in terms of this receiving room, but Danny Gray and Rashee Rice both are awesome receiving options for this SMU team. Grant Calcaterra and Nolan Matthews Grant Calcaterra more than Nolan Matthews, but even still, 2 good tight ends there that SMU's been willing to use in the passing game. Ulysses Bentley is by far their best receiving back. Trey Siggers is another receiving back that they've been using this year. I think there's just too many targets here for TCU to defend. And I think that SMU is going to end up winning a close one in this game. I need to actually double check. What is the spread on this game? Yeah, it is TCU -10. I'll be real. I expected that to be a lot closer. I'm still taking SMU with the upset.
Yeah, I'm sticking with TCU. I think Zach Evans is just beast of a back that I've been expecting him to be. And I think that's going to be a lot for that SMU defense to handle. And also with Max Duggan's dual threat ability, it might throw them off because you never know. They could run the RPO as well. And that's really going to put SMU, force them to make some crucial plays and throws. So we'll see. It's going to be a great game to watch. I definitely have that game highlighted for this weekend that I really want to watch all 4 quarters for. That's going to be at 12 p.m. Oh, man, that's going to be tough. So I'm going to have to watch the Georgia game and that game simultaneously.
We'll figure it out. Keep it on the laptop. Next game we're going to go with here is another noon game. This is the ABC game at noon, and it is Texas Tech at Texas. So Xavier, I'll let you, or no, you started last time. I'll start this time.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the Texas side of things here.
Yeah, you're fine.
And obviously this starts with nobody else but Mr. Bijan Robinson, who has been nothing but a beast, John Robinson, throughout this year.
Oh God.
I was wondering if you caught that or not. I guess it was hard not to catch that. Anyway, so Bijan Robinson, enough said. Dude's one of the best running backs in the country. He's going to be scoring tons of points for you this weekend. In terms of the receiving core, they got 3 clear options at receiver that they tend to go to. However, they've been pretty inconsistent, especially with Hudson Card at quarterback. We're going to see how that changes now with Casey Thompson now at quarterback. Or maybe Texas just learns that, the run game is their identity right now. Got to ride Bijan. Got to ride guys like Roshan Johnson. Put some Keelan Robinson carries in there as well. If they can kind of focus in on that run game, that could be what they have to go for as the season goes on. But I think that you're going to see plenty of Bijan work. Casey Thompson, I'm not going to say it's a start for this week by any means necessary, because again, we're still not sure how he's going to do well in the passing game, but he has enough legs to where he probably provides a decently safe floor, especially against a team like Texas Tech, which has a very limited defensive capabilities. So those are my guys for Texas. Got to be Bijan, maybe Casey Thompson.
Yeah, I guess I'll speak on the Texas Tech side. There's a few good names in here. You have, I guess I'll start at the helm. No, I'll go with who I think is the best player at Texas Tech. I'll go with Taj Brooks, the running back. I wouldn't say out of nowhere. I think he's the best player on Texas Tech right now.
I dropped him in so many leagues this week. I am not dealing with that again.
What?
Absolutely blew out their opponent last week, and he got almost none of the work.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. It was tough. But I do like the first two games where I was like, you got a lot of work, over 100 yards in 2 games. I mean, I felt the same way about Chris Rodriguez this past week, where I was just like let down. And I think I can allow running backs to have at least one letdown week. You're going against Texas, so we'll see how. I mean, we saw what Arkansas gives the formula of like them running on Texas. So I trust Taj Brooks in this week. Now I'll speak on their wide receivers, and I think there's only really one name to really point out, and that's Eric Ezukama. It was it was just like it was very concerning at the beginning of the year, where you heard throughout camp that he got hurt and he had an MCL sprain, and I was like, oh man, is he gonna come back the same? And it was a lot of confusing reports where it was like, oh, maybe he tore his MCL or ACL, and then I was like, oh, it's a sprain. And now I'm not a doctor or anything, but it had a sigh of relief of like, all right, you can make it back for camp, and maybe you can replicate some of the success you had in the past, because he's always been a really good receiver for Texas Tech. And Tyler Shuck at the helm, under center. He's a serviceable quarterback. I wouldn't, if you're in a deeper league, then yeah, he's a good guy to have. But yeah, that's all we can say about Texas Tech. If I had to pick a winner in this game, Texas isn't inspiring because I feel like they always let you down. But for fantasy-wise, Bijan's always going to get the good work. It always just comes down to the quarterbacks, I guess. But I'll still take Texas in this one. I think they can outscore them.
I'm going to take Texas as well. I don't trust Tyler Shuck to be able to keep up with a Steve Sarkisian offense, and I expect Texas to win this game relatively comfortably. I imagine Texas Tech does put up plenty of points, though.
Yeah.
Go ahead and move on to our next game, and that is a very weird game in my opinion, not because of the matchup, just because when it is. We have Boise State at Utah State at noon Eastern time, which is 9 a.m. Pacific time. Well, these guys are both Mountain time, I believe. So this 10 a.m. for them. So that's a weird time to place like closer to West Coast teams at. So I expect this game to be an absolute shootout. I expect both teams to just be chucking the ball around. You're going to see a lot of points scored in this game. So Xavier, I'm going to let you decide. Who do you want? Which team do you want to talk about here first? Boise State or Utah State?
I'll talk about Boise. I think Buckmeyer is he's been a good quarterback this season for Boise. I love Khalil Shakir and George Holani. If he's healthy, it's going to be great for that offense as well too, especially catching out of the backfield and running between the tackles. I really want Shakir to get a lot more work this week. In the last week, they had to go against Oklahoma State. It was a close loss. They only lost by a point. It was like 21-20.
Yes, sir.
So, Khalil Shakir got a lot of receptions, just no touchdowns. And, you're going against a Power 5 competitor, so the things will be a little bit tougher for you, but he still looked great. And now you're going against Utah State, not the greatest defense in the world either. So, like Jared said earlier, I expect a shootout. I expect to see a lot of 100-yard games from maybe multiple receivers on both sides. And I think ultimately Boise gets this win in the end.
Yeah, I'm going to go Boise in this game as well, but I'm going to talk about Utah State here. Blake Anderson just picked up his offense that he's starting off in Arkansas State, picked it up, brought it over to Utah State, dropped it in, said, all right, let's find the pieces we need here. Logan Bonner looks like has lost his starting gig to Andrew Peasley for the time being, and the offense picked up right where it left off. They got a plethora of receiving options there at Utah State. I think they got I think the top two, obviously, Devin Tompkins is a must-have in your leagues in this point if you haven't gotten him already. He's going to find the end zone almost every single week. He's going to get several bombs him every single time. Brandon Bowling developed some pretty nice chemistry when Logan Bonner was out there on the field. So remains to be seen if he has that good chemistry with Peasley. But if he does, he's going to be another good option for you to start, especially in a deeper league. So I like what I'm seeing out of both of these teams. And again, the running games for either of these teams are very inspiring to me. But man, when these teams start chucking the ball around, it's going to be a ton of fun. I'm taking Boise to win this game, but I think this is going to be a fun noon game to start off with. You look like you want to say something.
No, nothing like that.
Okay.
I'm ready. I guess get on to the next game. If you look at the show sheet, we have UMass at Coastal Carolina. So I really feel like it's only one side to talk about this. So I guess we can, unless you have something on the UMass side that you want to talk about, but we can both touch on Coastal Carolina.
If it weren't for the fact that this is a podcast, I would just be staring at you silently with my eyes peeled towards you.
Yeah, but we have UMass at Coastal Carolina at 1 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Sorry to all the people that don't have ESPN Plus. I think it's a very great tool to have for watching a lot of these games, especially if you're having have the multicast feature. Mm-hmm. They can watch multiple games at once.
Honestly, the multicast feature is what makes it worth it.
Yeah, it absolutely does. But we're not sponsored by ESPN, so we don't have to tell you what to do. You don't have to listen to us. We're not getting paid to do this. But I guess I'll talk about.
But if you wanted to pay us ESPN, we listen.
Exactly. We can listen. We can hear out some offers. But back to the game. I'm expecting an absolute blowout, and it's honestly, I'd be surprised if UMass scored over 6 points. It's not even going to be close. I love Coastal Carolina's.
So Xavier, what you're saying is I should start Coastal Carolina's defense against you this week?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw that you did it in our home league, and I was like, look, that's going to be tough for me. But at the same time, I have the best defense in college football in terms of scoring. I have UGA versus Vandy. So I'm fine. But back to the Coastal Carolina game. I love all the weapons that they have. You know what? I will say Grayson McCall has been much of a disappointment this season in terms of fantasy relevance. Like, he's solid in terms of getting you maybe 20 to 25 points. And on a bit, it's so weird because he's not doing anything wrong because he doesn't have to go out there and get into a shootout or use his legs. That's the tough thing about this. It's like Coastal Carolina can rely on their run game, and that starts with Reese White. But another name that's emerged is Shamari Jones. He had a few good games early on where Reese White had a couple touchdowns early in a lot of their earlier games, and he came on as the second back. And then against Buffalo last week, where it was a lot closer, and Grayson McCall had to be a lot better and had 3 passing touchdowns, and Shamari Jones had a big day of over 150 yards. He was the leading guy for rushing, so yards on the ground. So yeah, it's gonna be a slaughter. I don't expect this game to be anywhere close. I was surprised to see that this is over 65, but that's only if Coastal Carolina wants to do that type of damage to UMass.
Yeah, it's not about whether or not UMass can score enough points. It's whether or not Coastal Carolina wants to embarrass them that badly. You covered everything here. Again, there's nobody on the UMass team that I'm going to be like, you should absolutely start. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take that back. I've been compiling stats every single week, and a surprising name that shows up every week is Brady Olson, the quarterback out of UMass. Not that he's going to be like a top 24 guy for CFF every single week, but he apparently, in these games where he's falling behind, he's putting enough points to be consistently in the top 40 quarterbacks every single week. So,
man, but has he faced a team like Coastal so far this season, especially that type of defense?
You know what? That's a good question. I don't even know if he's faced a team no, they've gotten blown out by Pittsburgh. They've gotten blown out by Boston College. I think
yeah, Pittsburgh is a good defensive team, but I think Coastal Carolina, that's more of a prideful defensive, we're really leaning on our defense to, help us out sometimes. So
Nah, fair enough. Fair enough. All right, we'll move on from this trash game. We already covered San Jose State at Western Michigan because I went out of order earlier. But we're now going to go to this is another one that's like just intriguing out of conference matchup that I don't think anybody was circling before the season, but two great or good group of 5 teams here going at it. UTSA at Memphis. So I believe you started last time, so I'm going to start this time. And I'm going to take the UTSA side. I'll let you have Memphis.
Thank God.
I'm gonna let you have Memphis. That's because I think UTSA might have more pieces to work with here. Frank Harris has proven himself as a pretty decent dual threat quarterback, but he's not the focus of this team currently. It's just there's a lot of pieces on this team that are there to work with. Sincere McCormick, obviously still one of the better running backs in the group of 5. Now he hasn't gotten the high upside that a lot of people wanted out of him this year so far, but even still, he's going to be a very serviceable running back to you. The surprise of this year, though, has to be wide receiver Zachary Franklin. A lot of people were talking about him coming into this year, and I was on it a little bit, but I wasn't quite ready to believe that he could take that true next step. He is now a major part of this offense, and he is going to find the end zone at least once or twice in this game. He is a guy that's almost a must-start wide receiver. At this point, I never thought I would say that about a UTSA wide receiver. So good on him there. Joshua Cephas is another wide receiver that if they continue passing like they have been and that passing game continues to be done well, he's going to have some value this weekend as well. So those are 4 guys I'm kind of looking for there. So Xavier, who are you looking for in Memphis?
Yeah, I was surprised that you said UTSA had more to work with. I'm going with Memphis has more to work with. I think Seth Hennigan has proven himself to be that solidified starter for Memphis. It was a guy that they recruited, not asked guy out of the transfer portal. This is a guy that they've always wanted and that they've recruited well, and he's done a good job. Maybe the Mississippi State game was not impressive, but that's going against SEC competition in somebody else's backyard for the first time. And I think he did pretty well, for the circumstance. And then you have all conference receiver, Calvin Austin, great receiver, great fantasy option. Sean Dykes, I think, is going to be a key factor in this game as well, too. You have Javon Ivory, and then another freshman, Brandon Thomas. He may have not had the greatest game against Mississippi State, but I think he did serviceable enough to where UTSA is going to be prime for him to have, to replicate the first 2 games that he's had this season, over 100 yards and getting 15 to 20 carries. So I love what Memphis has for this game, and I'm taking Memphis in that game.
I'm taking Memphis. Yeah, I'm taking Memphis. Again, I think there's more players for Memphis or that UTSA has to work with, but I think Memphis has the better players still. And so I think they're going to put up plenty of points to win this game. I guess we'll go ahead and hit our last game here. I'll be honest, I was surprised the over-under on this was so massive. And that is Kent State traveling to Maryland. Over-under on this game, 75.5. My God. So, Xavier, I'm going to let you start here. Which team you want to talk about here first?
I'll take Maryland because I know you've been a Dustin Crum fanatic for the entire offseason. And it's I have to get a share of Crum in every mock draft that we have or something like that.
I couldn't get one of him. And so there was a time where every single time I was I want a share of Crum and I couldn't get him.
Yeah. But I'll touch on the Maryland side because I've been really excited about this team. I had Talia Tagovailoa as one of those sleepers at the beginning that we had in the offseason.
That you did.
He showed promise in his first few games last year. Then after a while, he started to fade out. But it was just a COVID year and everything was very weird. So I don't chalk it up. I chalked it up as just a COVID season for him. And now that he's with the team fully, he's the QB1 at Maryland. There's nobody really pushing him for that starting job. That he's going to have a lot of room to grow. And he's shown that to where he has a lot of top receivers. Dante DeMoss and Raheem Jarrett are his 2 top receivers. Dante DeMoss is, I think, having the better season slightly, but it's been great. The tight end has been well for them as well, too. The running back, I forgot. I think it's Fleet Davis.
Yeah, Fleet Davis.
Fleet Davis has been a really great back for Maryland that I've been surprised. Can catch up the backfield as well too. So it's just been the Maryland offense is low key scary good. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to push anybody in the Big Ten or anything like that, but
Oh yeah, scary good putting up 20 points on Illinois.
Yeah,
I'm joking.
Yeah, Illinois. I mean, Illinois. Yeah, I don't know. Illinois is just weird. I mean, they're still bad, but yeah, it's not terrible.
Yeah,
So
that was an ugly game for both of them.
yeah,
You're leaving me to talk about Kent State here, and like you said, Dustin Crum is about to go off in almost every fantasy league. If you're an owner of Dustin Crum and you feel like you're getting frustrated with him, do not drop him yet. Do not drop him yet. It is just about to begin. And I believe it probably starts this week at the very least. Maryland's a good team. Don't get me wrong. I do think they're worth a top 25 team. And I believe they are a top 25 team in this week's poll. Their defense isn't that special. They're not Texas A&M. They're not Iowa.
Yeah.
They're not those teams. Crum is going to be able to put up some points in this game. And I believe his dual threat ability is going to provide him an extremely safe floor in this game. And he's got plenty to work with. Marquez Cooper has come in on the second year as the lead running back for this team and has definitely carved himself out a role in this offense. In addition to that, Nykeem Johnson, in the absence of Jashawn Polk, has become a massive receiving weapon for Kent State in this team. Absolutely. I believe that I'm taking Maryland to win. Let me be clear here, but Kent State's going to put up some points in this game, and this over 75.5 shows that even Vegas knows that this game can get out of hand very, very quickly in terms of just back and forth, scoring for a very long time. So I'm taking Maryland, but I expect Kent State to give Maryland all they can.
Yeah. I have no grievances with that. I maybe think Maryland is going to be a little bit better and give them, a few more problems. So maybe it won't be as, high scoring as what Vegas thinks it is. You said it was like what? Over under was 75?
75.5.
Yeah, nah, I don't think it's going to get that high. I would say I would still agree with it if it was, 65, like for our over unders. But yeah, probably not 75. But yeah.
I was shocked on that one when I saw just how high that spread was. I was just like, are you kidding me right now? That's insane. I understood that when it was Louisville, Ole Miss. I got that because those are two teams that are expected to score a lot. Kent State and Maryland don't strike me as a team that can hit that, but I wouldn't be shocked at all. Yeah. So that covers our last game. Again, just to kind of recap here. Again, these are the games to watch out for if you are just, struggling with who to sit, who to start. Look at these games to see if you have anybody on your roster. These are the games that people are expected to score a ton of points in. Wake Forest at Virginia, San Jose State at Western Michigan, Kent State at Maryland, UMass at Coastal Carolina, Boise State at Utah State, Texas Tech at Texas, UTSA at Memphis, and SMU at TCU. So that's it. We covered 17 games here. We've talked a lot of college football here. Xavier, you want to close this out?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you all for subscribing and listening to our podcast. This is the Chase and Natty podcast. You can follow us and subscribe to us on all podcast platforms from Apple Music to Spotify. We are excited for the future. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at CFF_Jared and CFF_ Xavier. We love getting those, the DMs about questions that y'all might have or just adding us for questions. Doesn't matter in public or private. We don't judge. We'll give you our honest opinion. Be on the lookout for our next show on, I believe, Friday for our sit-start discussion for the Kings Classic draft, or not draft, for our league. So that'll be out then. We have a tough opponent. I believe, who are we going against?
We are going against Josh Xavier from CFF guys.
Okay. So, yeah, I think Josh has a pretty good team as well, too. We have some great matchups that we're going to talk about there. But, yeah, thank you all for coming in and listening to our Week 4 preview. And we can't wait to give you all more content and hear us next time. So, thank you.
Peace, y'all.
Yeah.